because we are talking about SEA players and SEA teams. There's an SEA player out there that specifically said something in particular that was very interesting, Jonathan. Castaway had an article with Otomo. Shout out to both those boys. Otomo, of course, he's somewhat of a journalist, Jonathan, also casting these days, and Castaway is, a player trying to make it to the tier 1 scene. Castaway said, Jonathan, in this article, or rather this interview with Otomo, Castaway said that SEA players are asking too much money for salary. Apparently, a lot of players that have been attempted to be, I suppose, hired by Neon back when Neon was still around. Apparently, a lot of players from SEA are asking for around 10k USD a month. And the argument is, we've been to LANs, we've been to majors, whatever. We were tier 1 DPC or div 1 DPC. We deserve 10k USD a month. Now, 10k USD a month in not any, but most SEA countries is a lot of money. Right, I guess you could say like Singapore, it's not that much, whatever. Right,
it's pretty high for Singapore. I will correct you there. That is still high for Singapore.
Okay, but what I'm saying is 10k a month for SEA is pretty high. USD, it's a lot of money, right? You'd have to.
It's a lot of money anywhere. That's 100k a year, 120k a year in American terms.
It's not high in Australia. I promise you that.
I mean, again, by statistics, 120k is more than double the median salary in America. And that would be, sure. I believe that's like a senior coder position, so fairly high up the ladder, corporate ladder in, say, IT. So it is considerably high. Maybe not in Australia, but Australia's a different story. I'm guessing you have to be a millionaire just to survive in the streets of Australia nowadays. Your hobos are probably worth more than the Southeast Asians in middle class for just how much you need to survive in Australia. That's just the outback,
You know
I
what,
guess.
John? I actually think what you just said is not inaccurate. As sad as that sounds, I actually believe you're right in what you just said. Moving on to the topic though, Castaway did mention 10k USD per player. Just to be specific, of course, 10k per player is what Castaway was complaining about. He's saying, well, how are these SEA orgs meant to hire players if they want 10k USD per month? Which, I'll be frank, John, I kind of agree with him, right? I've wanted to own teams before, right? Now, mind you, I don't have the money to own a team, John. I know how expensive it is now. But before I knew how expensive it was, when we first started casting, we first started getting lands, I started asking some questions. I'm like, I wonder how much owning a team in SCA really does cost. Shout out to people like Gary, who gave us a bit of an insight. There's other SCA. We had Powell from Fnatic, who would kind of give us a bit of an insight. We had an idea of how much these players get. And as soon as I heard those numbers, that dream of owning a team out the window. It's like, no, there's no way. There's no way I can afford to pay 50k a month USD for 5 players. And then on top of that, I've got to pay for a coach who's probably going to ask a similar amount. And that's before I pay any of the staff in my organization.
Yep.
That's before I pay myself. That's before I pay the bills. Like the rent, the food costs, the travel costs, whatever the hell else you want to put in there, Jonathan. It's a lot of money to own a team right now. And in SCA, of all things, for it to cost 10k per month per player seems kind of ridiculous, if I'm frank with you, Jonathan. Now, if I may finish off my point just quickly before you get started. My idea was you accepted a salary that gave you the ability to live, and then you played your heart out for prize pools, right? That's what I thought it was always like. They give you a base salary, it'll allow you to survive, but then you've got to win. You've got to win, right? If you want your money for the year, you got to win. That's sport for you. But apparently, we're living in an age now where you have to pay these SCA players 10k a month, and that's SCA, John. Could you imagine how high it's gotten in other regions? What are you thinking?
Number one, that's not a very general statement to Southeast Asian players. I'm pretty sure we all know the players that they're talking about, and I'm not afraid to say it. It's blacklist. It's blacklist anyone remotely associated to those blacklist players as well. That's looking at players like DJ. And again, this is just because it's a very specific thing. It's unfair to say it's all of Southeast Asian players. It's all of these players who've been there and do still think that they're in the glory days of 2016. And this is a reality call. This is a wake-up call for all of them, especially those on Blacklist, because who knows if Blacklist sticks around, considering the results here in Riyadh. considering that they're not in TI. Riyadh is their make or break to keep that salary alive. Look at Cuckoo. No team, TNC picks him up with no salary. Right? So it's very clear who these statesmen were about. And it does make it hard for people to go off the veterans to build around a team. And that's why it's very hard. I mean, in a way, it's not. If you go with like fresher players, it's still relatively accessible. Neon, again, for their part, I'm pretty sure, you know, Castaway and company aren't getting 10K a month. I'm pretty sure Talon didn't offer that amount to WS, Akashi, Ponyo, even Chuen when he came in. They probably offered more than, you know, more than average for sure, considering Talon's stand, but definitely not as much as Old Talon. Not even, I don't think even remotely close to Old Talon there. And that is something that all of these pros will have to wake up to, again, because the salaries are way too high. I mean, again, Raven didn't join the team. I don't know if that's, like, to be fair to Raven, I do feel like he wanted to go on break. We haven't seen Carl. I don't know if he's on a sabbatical as well, or if it's something about just salary requirements that he wants. DJ, he did leave Bleed very last minute, so no one could integrate him on, you know, stuff like that. But it's this older set of players that I think have been spoiled, because to be fair, in their heyday in like 2016 into maybe 2020, 2022 for Aurora / Old Talon, a lot of investment was still coming into esports, but so a lot of that was just dragged up. Salaries went sky high. Guess what? Game development's down, IT's down. Everything outside of hardware in like IT is not doing well, and that's reality. Again, this is very specific to those old-time players. They're just too expensive. I know for a fact that other orgs were looking at bringing some of these old players in, but the salaries they were asking for were way too high. Like, they were willing to pay pretty good. You know, again, like, we're talking about players asking for 10K. They're being offered like maybe 5. You know, maybe 5, maybe even 7 at max. That's still an insane amount of money, even by American standards. Maybe not Australian, because the hobos there are richer than the kings of Southeast Asia, but 70K to 100K a year is still insane, right? Like, that's still not a laughable amount. That is still higher than the median income, again, in America. That's a coder at a middle position in America, and in a big IT firm. So it's kind of wild.
That's what I'm complaining about. Like, what are we doing here? Because it's like, the prize pools are already ridiculously high in Dota. Are they not? Like, comparative to other esports, I think Dota still has one of the highest, if not. Right. So we're playing for prize pool, are we not? If we're not playing to win, what are we playing for? Right? Like, I got a little bit upset when I started hearing these numbers the first time, because it started to become quite obvious to me that a lot of the players that we try to rely on to win some games for SCA, it becomes quite obvious that they're just securing a bag. You know, they're just, are we just securing a bag, or are we trying to win some Dota too? Right? Because I'll tell you what, John, if I was a player and I was being, you know, offered a team invite, I'd say, you know, don't worry about the high salary. Give me the players I want. Give me the good players. Give them the money. I'll win you the game. I'll win the damn tournaments, right? That's what you want to do. Now, I know that's easier said than done, Jonathan. I get it, right? SCA hasn't won a TI yet. I understand. We don't win many tournaments. But I don't think paying players this high of a salary is a great thing, because it doesn't feel like anyone's incentivized to win. No. You know?
Yeah, I agree. I think what's my point about that? It's also like, I just don't understand why they ask for such high salaries when org cut in prize pools is very low. I know the ratios. It's not a lot. Even if they win one major. I think it's like most orgs go for a 20, maybe 15% cut. Some of these players haggle down to 10. So even if you win, the expenses for the year aren't covered from the prize pool for the org. There's no profit. And think about, like, this is why I've always felt, for at least in the past 6 years, it felt like Widow's salary is already rising at that point. I'm not sure how orgs ever made money. I really, really don't. I think Talon might be the one that kind of sustains it. A lot of these orgs are so dependent on their sponsors. Like, they're dependent on stuff like GGBet, 1xBet, Rivalry. There used to be PNXBet. And I don't think that's because of bad financial. I mean, in a way, it's bad financials because all these players ask for so goddamn much. Like, there's no room for an org to grow it. Again, in Liquid is one good example that I think does good, but they're also like top in terms of like name retention, brand recognition, right? EG used to be up there until they blew themselves up. I think in Southeast Asia, it might legitimately just be Talon, maybe T1, but I don't know how T1 does in like other esports. I know Bleed is a loss-leading kind of company, that they're just throwing money into it. Even before all of these issues with lawyers, Bleed's thing was just like a passion project, so it wasn't supposed to gain the money in like very early terms. So it feels like that's a lot of orgs, and a lot of those orgs are just running out of money. And I don't know, it doesn't help to try to be profitable when your players are asking for the equivalent of 5 high position IT workers in America with your prize pool cut so low, and considering you don't even win. So even that prize pool cut does nothing. It's like, it just doesn't do anything.
That's what I'm saying. That's my complaint, right? Like, let me make it clear. I'm not complaining that players get paid a lot of money. It's good. Let them get paid a lot of money. But you've got to win. Like, you can't be top 16 every tournament and then get 10K a month. You can't do that. You know how mad, John, if I was the owner of these teams, paying 10K a month, and this is the results they were giving me every time, you know how mad I would be? I would be furious. I'm not selling any merch. I'm not getting any prize pool cut. Nobody cares about my team because we're trash. And on top of that, I'm playing 10K a month. Are you, for each player? Are you kidding? Are you kidding? Oh, there's no way.
Oh yeah.
There's no way.
I mean,
and the worst part is most of these players don't want to stream either.
Oh,
they don't want to stream and put the logo on. They don't want to put their team logo on. Look, I'm not pointing fingers, Jonathan. I'm simply saying I know a lot of players out there that demand a crazy high salary and they won't even do the bare minimum for the team paying them that money. Yeah. I don't understand where we're going with this anymore. But I'm not saying you need a business degree, but my God, we can do simple basic math, can't we?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's also been a little bit of an issue, even outside of streaming, like preset content when you want your players to be featured and stuff like that. Even that is something that a lot of players just dislike, which I get. You know, you just want to play Dota. At the same time, you know, it doesn't help the scene if the players don't sell themselves as well, and that's just not something. Like, look at Blacklist. Where's their player content? Do they have player content for their salaries? I don't even know. They stream. Some of them stream. Gabby streams, sure. He streams himself being, you know, doing stuff that I wouldn't necessarily want my player to stream with what they like to enjoy on kick.com or whatever. But it's like, I don't know, like, at the least do something. You know, it's like, get some audience retention in, because let's be frank, Dota numbers, in terms of viewership, esports in general has been on a little bit of a downtrend in terms of that, and it doesn't help when your players don't want to get themselves out there. Again, that's why I think one thing you love to mention is like Saberlight. Saberlight's all about hyping himself up. He's selling himself as a name, not just as a player, but as a personality as well. You know, that's like the smart thing to do. A lot of our players just don't do that. I mean, they're doing it now with streaming just a bit more, but like, I don't know, like, you have an org like Blacklist. I'm sure they have so many content creators. They used to have a lot. They could have done so much more with that, and it just feels like no one wants to do anything.
I just can't. It's so sad. It's just so sad. Oh my God. 10K a month to come top 16 every tournament. You know, if that was my team, they would have lasted a week, John. I would have kicked them out after the first. There's no hope. You guys are gone. Get out of here.
That's so funny, because you're literally, in that description, that's Aurora.
Good. Shout out to Aurora. Good for them. Good for them. Fuck them. I mean, are you kidding me? I gotta pay you guys 10K a month and you're not gonna win? Get out of here. Get the hell out of here. You place top 3 if I'm paying you 10K a month. Top 3 minimum. Top 3 minimum. God damn it. Shout out to Aurora, though. They are playing fantastic. I mean, if any SEA team deserves the money, it is Aurora. Right?
No, but you just literally described what Aurora did this year. That's their entire year. They've not placed above top, I think, 12. Maybe top 9 to 12 was their highest placement this entire year.
Oh, well,
you literally just described Aurora, and I know their salaries. That I know the multiplication number their salaries took going to Aurora. And, you know, I love Sunby, I love Pete. He's a great lad to talk to in person. I just found it slightly funny when he retweeted what Castaway said, because he's not, his hands aren't the cleanest from that kind of thing. But I understand they were offered it; they didn't demand it, so maybe a little bit of a different scenario there. Still kind of funny. And yes, I mean we're dishing it on Blacklist. Aurora's kind of guilty.
Oh no,
to an extent of that.
I'm dishing it on all the SEA teams out there, Jonathan. I'm dishing it out because we passed the era, I feel like, where players actually wanted to win. That's what I don't feel it anymore. Maybe with Aurora, like Aurora's stack looks like they want to win. Talon looks like they want to win. I'll give you that. But I feel like past that, I don't really see the motivation for players to win. I just don't see it. I think everyone's this goes back to the complaint I made a few podcast episodes ago, which was a long time ago, about Boom Esports, right? Because I started seeing particular players, suddenly Gucci bags and iPhones and fucking Louis Vuitton sandals, and I couldn't help but thinking, well, this doesn't look like a Dota player to me. This doesn't look like... When I look at the EU guys, Jonathan, they're all wearing white t-shirts, plain jeans, and no one's showing off. No one cares about spending 5k on some fucking on some sandals, And then the NCAA players all of a sudden come around, and then they're just rocking everything: gold chains, Louis Vuittons, Gucci, you name it. They've got. Like, what are we doing? Are we here to play, or are we on the catwalk? Well, what are we doing?
I will say that was the influence of one very particular player, and that just spread. That was very bad influences coming out.
If you're talking about Skem,
no, it wasn't Skem. It wasn't Skem's influence.
Skem gets permission because Skem's a good player. That guy is consistently good. I will not hear anything bad about Skem. Go on, John. Don't even name who it was. I don't even want to hear it because I'm gonna get upset. I'm gonna get upset, and I know I'm gonna start ranting.
You know who it is, though. You know who it is. You know who it is. You think about Yopaj and how he was on Neon, suddenly getting that. You think about Jackie suddenly being into like the hoodies and stuff. Even Alphon having to buy. They dragged Alphon in to buy some of that stuff too. It's like, come on, guys. The manager doesn't make 10k a month, okay? He barely makes a quarter of that. Please slow down for the manager. Have mercy on your staff mates, guys. Please.
Anyway. Well, that was my rant about the 10k a month, Jonathan. I hope, players get a little bit more realistic, because I'll tell you, I mean, John's already said it, but the money is drying up. Your sponsors right now that are paying, I'll give you the inside info. The sponsors that pay right now are either betting sponsors, right? Or what else? What other sponsors left? It's like literally betting sponsors and like maybe streaming platforms that nobody cares about, like Kick, or like maybe, I don't know, like the stuff you don't really want to be sponsored by is what I'm trying to say, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
You're going to the devil at this point to seek out that money. That's where we kind of are.
Yeah, it's pretty much just betting right now. No one else. BTS was trying. We had Mate Mate, and then they got Papa John's for Summit. Man, for God Smash Summit, like they really tried. I love those guys. I miss that. I miss those Mate Mate ads. Call outs used to be fun, Mike. Instead of just calling out to a link, they'd give you a crate of the stuff. It was okay. You chug it on stream. You have a good time. Now it's not even creative. Like, what? Do you want me to gamble on your ad? No, it's not. Yeah, it's like, sure, but nah.
I feel like I've got to flip the table now as well, because I've given crap to the players, Jonathan. Allow me now to direct the crap towards people like us, right? Because I'm a fair man, Jonathan. I think everyone deserves a bit of a slap in the face once upon a time. What about you mentioned the viewership for these tournaments are dropping a little bit lower. Have you not noticed that there's not really any content going on during these tournaments anymore? Like it feels like things are a bit bland, aren't they? Like, I feel like the way a tournament's run these days is we go to the panel, the panel talks about whatever, and then we go to the game, and then the game happens, and we do some cringy interview for 30 seconds, and then we send it back to the panel. That's what happens every time. Now, I remember 5+ years ago, during those big breaks, we used to have Slack's content being run all the time. That was hilarious. All the skits he used to do, all the crazy stuff that used to happen back in esports, I feel like just doesn't happen anymore. And makes me wonder, like, are we securing the bag, Jonathan, as talent? And maybe not you and I, because we don't get many lands, but as talent, you start to ask the question, are we also securing the bag? Because I can't particularly say that there's too much effort being put into making these tournaments as entertaining as possible anymore. Are you gonna argue that point with me?
I mean, I'm not gonna argue that the tournaments aren't as entertaining. I think this comes down to how do I say this? Talent can only do as much as the tournament wants them to do for the most part. Even if you throw some ideas out, sometimes it just doesn't fit their goals as the organizer. I don't know if this is directly attributable to talent, because I don't know. I feel like that's a direction that organizers take. You know, PGL is a little bit more professional in how they want to portray themselves, right? It's straight up a sports broadcast. I think ESL has always had room to be funny, and to be fair, what they do in like Dream Leagues are really, really fun. I think that's their product for much more, you know, like almost like the Summit kind of vibes, but not quite, you know, but somewhat kind of going for that more laid back, funny vibe. I think